Hi, guys. I'm Tara Lipinski.
And this is Todd Kapasashi.
And you are listening to Unexpecting, the podcast.
Season 3.
Yeah, Season 3. Also, my new voice.
What's wrong with your voice?
You don't hear a difference?
Just a little sick?
Yeah, I'm sick, but I sort of lost it. So I feel like it's real raspy.
We've both been sick.
Yeah.
Mostly probably from traveling.
We've been just swapping sicknesses. It's awful.
Although I had a weird illness. I was sick for like one day. I had a horrible sore throat and it just went away.
I mean, I kind of like being your diagnoser of sicknesses. I feel like this is a fun part of our relationship.
Well, you thought I had the flu, which I didn't.
I like to look at your symptoms. I like to test my hand out on your forehead.
Which
but I'm right in the
time-honored
beginning.
tradition of the hand on the forehead, which never works.
It does work. And I feel like you believe it works now. Sometimes when you're a little sick and, mopey, I feel like you'll take the hand on the forehead gladly. You're like, yeah.
Just tell me I'm sick so I don't
tell me I'm sick.
Well, as you get older, you always have this constant conversation with yourself of like, am I sick or I'm just old? Because I'm so tired. I'm just tired all the time. It's just my baseline is I'm exhausted. So I'm always sort of like, am I sick or am I just
I don't know. Like
old?
you had a stabbing sore throat, so I don't think that's
not
just
in that
old.
case. But I don't know if anyone else has this. I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but I bet everyone else does this, but like there's a part of me a lot that's like, man, I wish there was, not that I wish I had like a serious, like life-threatening disorder.
No.
But sometimes I'm like, God, I wish I had like a very obvious illness that would explain why I feel so perpetually bad.
No, I don't want you to have any illness.
Do you don't feel like that? Like, I wish I could go into the doctor and they'd be like, oh, you have this rare thing that like, it's the tiredness disorder that just makes you exhausted. Like, here's a pill and you're going to feel like $1 million bucks every day. I just don't think
there's any pill to fix that. I think some people are just more tired than others.
I don't think so.
I am. I'm just one of those.
You don't seem that tired though.
Yeah, I am not.
I seem tired.
You do seem a little tired.
I don't know.
Okay. Should we do the update first before we get into other life fun things?
Well, tell me about your trip to New York.
Well, you were there.
Tell me about it.
Okay, so we went to New York, which was really fun. I had to work, and then Todd surprised me, and we spent, I guess, a week in the city. And it was really fun this year, I think, with Georgie just being this age. And
we also received an award. Don't gloss over that.
I did. I received an award, which was really Johnny and I, which is like the most special. It was our first award we actually received together.
And a joint acceptance speech.
Yeah, we told them, we're like, we don't want to do our own. But it's fun. I mean, obviously I've received a lot of awards for like my own skating career, but this is fun in the second part of my career, which, I share with Johnny. It's nice to like do it together. It's so interesting. I mean, Johnny and I talk about it a lot. His speech at our wedding was, amazing on so many fronts. Like, side note, I'm really getting off track. I really think Johnny's speech at our wedding may be one of the best speeches of a wedding ever. Like, I would bet money on that. What do you feel about it? Like 100%.
Well,
if you were to go
Johnny
around the world right now and hear speeches, his is in the top 5%.
I disagree. I love Johnny. I love Johnny. Luckily he doesn't listen to the podcast, so he won't hear this. But I think his speech was awesome. Very, 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 very good.
I thought it was
I think, I would have to imagine there's also, not that you guys don't have an amazing bond, but like brother, sisters who have gone through a bunch, like emotional, not that his wasn't, but life circumstances probably make certain speeches like.
Okay, I agree with you. There's probably
tearjerker.
Tearjerker. Like, but just with his mix of being an incredible orator and storyteller, but like the fun of it, the ups and downs of it, the way that he brought in like me and him and I don't know, and you, and like.
Honestly, I kind of forget it, which probably says something too.
It does.
I remember
it's so good. I remember I
great.
put it on Instagram. It's somewhere on my Instagram. I like posted it in parts too because I was like, this is the best speech. I also love him, but this is the best speech ever.
It was really good.
It was really good.
Yeah. I feel like I've been to weddings, a couple where there are speeches that were probably more impactful.
Well, yeah. I think like you said, it's different if there's like some deep, like emotional things. But I mean, there were he talked about some emotional things he opened up about, if you remember, because he was going through, like when we met, he was going through such a ridiculously hard divorce, and that's how we sort of bonded.
Because you were also going through a ridiculously hard divorce, your first marriage that no one knows about.
And then no one knows.
Breaking news.
Could you imagine? Anyways, where was I going on this? But anyways, I was just going to say, coming from an individual sport, especially figure skating, and now that you've been around figure skating a lot, I think you realize the sport really is, I mean, yes, there's the team event now, but it's just you, and there's, so few opportunities, and so, the chances of you like making an Olympic team and then winning an Olympic medal, all of these things, it's just the odds are so low that it is so competitive. And I just feel like my whole life, my whole career was just so focused on me that I truly like almost like go against that now. Like I love the idea of Johnny and I and what we do together as a team. Like I love the team feeling. I maybe I was a team sports person at heart, but like I love this team feeling.
Well, I think it's probably the way with all, I always find it interesting with you is the like kinship between professional athletes in a certain sport, because you like have this intimate knowledge of a world that no one else does. And like I feel like you have a lot of great relationships. I mean, you even when we were in New York, you saw Sarah Hughes, who has a kid who won in 2002. That was really cool. And I don't know, it's just like even if you don't really know the person that well or haven't spoken in 10 years, it doesn't probably matter. Like even I don't know that I've ever seen you talk to like Christy Yamaguchi, but if you were like in a room with her and you guys started talking, there's just a shared experience,
which I love. It's just so interesting. It's funny you say that. I don't know what it is, but I love the feeling because it's unspoken, right? Even with, sometimes, Johnny and I are so close, we talk about it, but it's like they know something that I know that not everyone else knows in a way that we know is very specific, and there's so much emotion attached to that. And it's like a lot of times in sports, it's part of your childhood and your upbringing and just like formative years. And it makes you who you are, that it's just this really incredible bond. But again,
yeah, it's like, when I see someone at the Santa Monica Promenade who I play pickup basketball with at Brentwood, it's like we have this shared bond of
very funny
playing.
No, but I think it's probably why I feel like I have this shared bond with everyone. I mean, it really is. It's funny we bring this up, but in the infertility community of just, I don't know you, but I know you. I know what you've been through, and I know what it feels like. And we probably would speak the same language, which is just, it's cool to have that in life. And I think sometimes, you go about life and you don't think about it. And then when you come across it, you're so grateful for it, especially when you get older. In our old age, tired old age. Anyways, we should do a little. Why did my voice sounds like it's cracking? That's what
happens when you're sick.
I know, it's like cracking. We should do a little update for the surrogate. We're getting close, guys. Like
close I'd to say, a baby girl.
Like weeks, less than a month away, I would say. But again, there could be like something that pops up, but we had gone through this thing that we updated you with on the last podcast where we had to do more blood work and whatever, but we, I guess like a week ago, got the go ahead and, are all good. And she's kind of like prepping her medicine, and we're just finishing up legal. And, there's so many processes to surrogacy, and so many people DM me like, and sometimes I feel overwhelmed because I don't even know how to answer it because it's so in depth of like the different stages of surrogacy and what goes into actually making that happen, because there's so many moving parts and insurance and
just also a lot of steps. I think I don't know who was it in New York, if it was either my aunt Chris who saw, or Christian maybe was asking me about it. It's just like, think about it. Even just to like start the process takes a while to like find one,
right?
The financial burden, and then like meeting the person and kind of feeling comfortable with them. And then, like you said, all the logistical, like insurance and payments and figuring all that, and then making sure they can like they're okay physically, and then they
Right.
come to LA, and
It's so long.
there's so many steps. We always talk. We've said this on the podcast before, but we joke in travel about the Mario flags. There's so many flags.
Did we ever talk about the Mario
I think
flags?
so.
Yeah. Just a little recap. We do this on travel. We did this the other night, but like obviously, I don't know, maybe our love of like our childhood Mario memories, but like there are so many flags to do, and we'll always do them like getting on the plane, getting off the plane, then baggage, then getting in the car.
But to remind people, at the end, Mario 1, which was like the first Nintendo game, at the end of every level, you had to like jump up on the flagpole and grab a flag.
Oh yeah, we might have some
to go
young
to the next
listeners
level.
that don't know about Mario.
So when we're traveling, we're like, only 4 more flags to grab, and we're in bed.
Yeah.
And now with Georgie, there's like 17 more flags.
Yeah, there's so many more flags. But I think that, the steps that it takes, it's exhausting. And I think for so many people, like we've been through this now, it's going to be our second time. But I think for so many people starting out, it's so overwhelming of like how to even begin a surrogacy journey. And then when you get involved in it, like you already are dealing with your own emotions and you're so tired and you've been through so much probably and trauma. And then you're like fighting to get this even started. It just always feels like this hurry up and wait type thing. But I feel grateful. I feel like I found a really great match for us. And, even when you go through legals, everything should be, obviously, when it comes to surrogacy, that's like the comforting part. Everything is like on paper, and you want to make sure that both parties involved are like really happy and getting out of it what they want. And it's going to be an enjoyable experience where hopefully you guys like bond and create a, friendship, and it's a teamwork moving forward. And I can imagine that there's probably matchups that like, it's like anything. It's like dating that you don't know until you get deeper in. And then like, can you imagine if you get deeper in and you've gone through all those Mario flags and then you're like, oh, like actually this person, I don't want to date anymore. Like this doesn't feel right. But like so far, I just feel so grateful that we've had, this experience where we've met two people that really seem to match. And even during the legal process, like you have lawyers going back and forth, but my surrogate and I are already just like jumping on the phone and being like, hey, let's like hurry this along. Like, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? Let's work through like, what do you think about this? Like, oh, I want to make you feel comfortable here. Oh, that, and it's just nice to have that relationship. And also, for me, it's just nice to know that like this person knows me enough of like everything I've been through that like, and everyone's different, right? In surrogacy, maybe people don't overthink it and they're just like, I want the surrogate to do whatever and I don't want to be involved, or, I'm whatever the reasons might be. But for me, it really is like I need, because I'm not able to do it. And if I were able to do it, I would do it in a very certain way, right? And I'm never going to be able to do it in that exact certain way. But there's things that would give me more anxiety or worry of like going to bed at night and overthinking something like, what if, what is, what's happening if this happens? And I think that, finding, that would be my advice, like finding someone that you could be open enough to talk to them about that and know that like you're not going to be in full control. But if you find someone who truly understands you and is able to, find ways to work with you to almost give you that control so you feel like the pregnancy, is something that you envisioned, even if it's not with yourself. So I'm grateful for that. And yeah, it feels crazy that, and I think it's just going to happen very quickly because like the holidays are going to be here and then all of a sudden that's going to be here. It's like not just a normal February month where we're just waiting. I think it's going to come very, very quickly. So
that's probably another thing about this that you don't think too much about is that there are all these steps and are all these flags, and it doesn't allow you time to be like, to have the realization that you're going to have another child. Like I haven't necessarily, well, maybe
thought
more
about
than
that.
you, because you're just doing more of the sort of legwork for this. But yeah, I haven't sat down and been like, oh wow, there's like 10 months from now, we could be doing this all over again, which is, again, I'm so thankful that we're able to after all we've been through, but like, are you ready?
I don't think anyone's like ready for like things that come with like a new baby. Like we'll actually know a lot more this time. I was just going to say, like, you have no idea what you're doing. I mean, we kind of know what we're doing. So I think that's going to be a little bit easier. And I think my anxiety is going to be way lower too. I mean, it's just like, the first time around, it's like, oh my God, if that pacifier even touched the couch, I was like sanitizing it. Whereas literally it dropped on the floor on the plain floor in your seat, and you sucked on it. You sucked on it and gave it back to her.
I think the timing doesn't work, but the fact that that's not what got me sick. I mean, I literally, a pacifier fell on like the disgusting. People are going to judge me for this.
No, I think many parents do this.
But yeah, I was like, oh, she's going to go nuts without this thing for the next 20 minutes. So I just put it in my mouth, made sure all the whatever was on the floor of the plane was in my mouth, and gave it back to her.
Yeah.
And she's alive. So.
She's alive. You did the right thing.
And now a quick word from our sponsors.
When I began my path to parenthood, I never anticipated the emotional roller coaster ahead. Freezing my embryos in my mid-30s felt like insurance. But I later faced 4 miscarriages, 6 failed IVF transfers, 8 retrievals, and a diagnosis of endometriosis requiring 2 major surgeries. I often hear from women just starting their journeys, feeling overwhelmed by the uncertainty of what's to come. I know firsthand how isolating and daunting it can be. But in sharing my story, I've been able to connect with so many of you who are facing similar challenges. If you're considering your path to parenthood and feeling lost, know you're not alone. Just as I found support through this podcast, there are resources to help guide you. Today's sponsor, FERRING Pharmaceuticals, offers valuable support through FERRINGfertility.com, providing the knowledge you need to make informed decisions. Whether you're looking for guidance on fertility testing, financial assistance, the IVF process, or finding specialists, FERRINGfertility.com is here for you. All right, so let's talk fertility timeline a little bit. Not that we really want to talk about this subject, but there are facts that we need to know as women. Did you know that women's peak reproductive years are between late teens and late 20s? Some research even indicates that peak fertility among American women is age 22 with an ideal first pregnancy at 23. So clearly that isn't most people's timelines, nor was it mine. And truthfully, in my early 20s, building a family was the furthest thought that I was having. And I was just thinking about my career and hopefully meeting someone who I eventually would build a family with. But that actually didn't happen until I was 32. But there are some proactive choices you can take when it is finally time. And that's where Ritual comes in. Their 3-in-1 fertility support was designed in partnership with an OBGYN and a fertility specialist. And it uses clinically studied ingredients in clinically studied dosages to support conception outcomes. So during my journey, I took a ton of supplements, and I loved being able to take charge of that aspect of my journey. And it definitely gave me a sense of control that I needed in a very uncertain time. So I wish that this 3-in-1 drink mix was around at that time for myself. It's twice daily, it's sugar-free, and it tastes like refreshing lemonade. One of the things that I love about Ritual is that I am able to trust Ritual. It's rigorously third-party tested for heavy metals and allergens for safety during preconception and pregnancy. It also received the Clean Label Project Purity Award. So all of these things are major pluses in my book. So bring the fertility science back to your bedroom with 3-in-1 fertility support from Ritual. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/Tara. That's ritual.com/Tara for 25% off. We've also had a funny thing with sicknesses about incubation periods. Todd doesn't understand the concept of incubation periods.
You're obsessed with incubation. You're like, it's just like how specific you think. Like, I love you, but sometimes it's like, no, it's only been 3.4 days. The incubation period is 2.7. You are not sick from the plane. Like,
but it's true.
How do you know incubation?
Because it takes a certain amount of time from when you like are in contact with the virus.
But you think that you
Todd, you
possess
did
this
not
intimate knowledge.
You
of
said
exactly,
it was probably the pacifier, and that literally
No, I
happened
didn't.
12 hours,
No,
8 hours before.
No, I know it wasn't the pacifier.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in New York around thousands of people. It was someone gross in New York. But
Yeah, that's where you got it from.
yeah. Or you, or someone gross sleeping next to me.
Everyone's listening, and I can't talk. They're probably like, Tara gave it to you.
Well, you missed what I said. I said probably someone gross sleeping next to me.
Oh, TK. Gotta take that back. Should we talk a little bit about, well, there's two other topics that I thought would be interesting to talk about. Of like, when I was on my way home, I was sending it to you about all these fertility startups. First off, guys, I don't know why me and you, I mean, remember last week or whenever it was, I thought of the fertility movie that we need to produce, but I don't want to give away my secrets. We still didn't talk about it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the one.
No, but we still need to watch Joy. We need to watch, is that what it's called? Joy?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we got to watch that. I can't believe I keep missing to do that, because that seems something I would be like obsessively watching. But there's all these crazy, I mean, not crazy, it must be just like more people talking about infertility, going through infertility, but there's so many startups. And I know me and you have talked for years, way before this like wave has come, of like what we could be doing in that space. And now I just see things popping up that we've talked about.
Yeah.
And it kills me. I'm like, why didn't we push? Like, there's one that came up, which it's interesting. Like, I wonder how it will work. Like, obviously I actually work with Dandy, which is really cool. They have come up with sort of 3 different categories, like a support community where they have this like WhatsApp community where people can talk and like trade, like, oh, I know this acupuncturist in San Francisco, or fertility acupuncturist, whatever it is. And then they also have services where you could like talk to a nurse when you're starting out IVF, learn more. And then also, you know, the nurse can like walk you through live demonstrations of how to give yourself a shot, which I think is like brilliant. And then they also have some products that like I think help give you control of the process a little bit, like this cool little belt where it tells you exactly where to put the shot, and all these things that just make the process more anxiety inducing. But there's this other one, the one I sent you, that came out, and it's all about, they're actually not gearing it towards people like us, like IVF long haulers, but like people that are doing egg freezing and whatnot. But the thing that I find interesting is like they have, from what we read in that article, they have a lot of money already like invested in this company. And it's $5,000 they're asking for someone to come give them a shot every part of the cycle, which is probably like 15 days. That just feels like,
but it's $5,000 total for the whole cycle.
Right. But that just feels, I mean, the process of going, I mean, I don't know, it's usually around 30,000 for and that is like an enormous cost, but you potentially are getting human life from it. Like, feels like $5,000. Like, I just remember thinking like, that's something I was thinking like we could do. Like, I always thought like the shot process is interesting and you don't want to mess up. I mean, I remember when I like, my lowest point was in that kitchen where we did a trigger and I messed, like somehow like the syringe kept pushing back on me. Like, I don't know why, like it had pressure in it. So then when I pulled it out, the entire trigger shot flew across the air. And that really was like, I thought that was like one of my lowest moments where I just like broke down and like cried. And like, I felt like I just like can't, this is awful. So I feel like the shot taking area is like such a stressful point of the process that I know there's something there, but $5,000, like, would people really?
Well, I mean,
maybe that's why our idea didn't work. We would have been like, it's $25,
$50. Well, I don't know, $5,000 for like a medical professional to come to your home, a private visit 15 times, actually, and the cost of like what these cycles cost. Like, $5,000 is not, you know, it's a lot of money. Believe me, like $5,000 to me is a ton of money, but in thinking about how much all this stuff costs, I don't know that it is.
But I mean, I guess what I would say is people are figuring it out. And I think that any type of like startup, any type of like, I mean, these companies, they are really trying to do good, and some things are expensive and it's just the way it is and it's life. But, you know, I think there's always the flip side to that of like, and you see a lot of it in the fertility community because I think it's such a emotionally charged, you know, subject or, you know, diagnosis where, you know, they really do try to give back at the same time and offer support in so many different ways, which I think is needed, like the emotional, the financial, like just options in general.
Well, that's why I think Dandy is actually an amazing, again, not trying to plug something that you're involved with, but like that's an idea we had, is like a social network for people. Cause like information is something that I feel like we talked about this ad nauseum, but like the Instagram world that is sort of there, kind of ad hoc because people are struggling with these things. You know, you should formalize it. Be nice to have sort of a official formal place like Dandy to go to and ask people questions and what worked for them. So I think that's
and I like that. I mean, what's interesting is I've worked with like a lot of companies in my life and career and sponsorships and you know partnerships. I've loved everyone we've had on the podcast and all the companies that I've connected with, I've worked with, like Receptiva, like it's FERRING, like everyone, like when we have calls about like, ideas of what we want to, talk about or put out there or, it just is, people care. People have either been through it and they care and they're open to idea. It just doesn't feel like, that in the past, I just always felt like there's like a line, a business, a this, a that, and that's what it is. Like this, I do feel like I'm really lucky with all the people we've worked with. I just did something with Carrot for like a magazine article that coincided with one of the people that listened to our podcast that had a miracle baby and it's now full circle and she wrote the article. It's just this interesting world, but I do feel like, and Receptiva, I was like on their like Christmas call, like they did a Christmas holiday party and I like announced the employee of the year and it's just people really care in this world and I'm just lucky that we found them and that they're doing good. But
and I forgot to mention, this will be fun to talk about, is so I was sitting in the lobby of our hotel. I think Georgie was taking a nap. You might have been up there. I forget. I had to do some work, so I was sitting on the hotel we stayed at was amazing, but had like a very wonky lobby, like a very small lobby. So there wasn't really a place to work. So it's kind of just on the one couch that's in the lobby and I'm sitting there working and like listening on my headphones. I might have had calls and this woman kind of walks up to me and I kind of see her coming and like looking at me. I'm like, what's going on here? Is this like a hotel person going to yell at me for sitting on this couch in the lobby? And, I took my headphones out and she's like, "Are you Todd? Are you Tara Lipinski's husband?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, again, who knows what this person's going to say. And she's like, "Oh my gosh. Like, I love your podcast. I listened to it. It got me through like this hard time. I was in a similar situation." I think she said it took them a few years. And she's like, "We just had I think she says she has a 10-month-old. And she's like, "Oh my God." Like it, again, listening to your podcast, listening to Tara and her experience, it like got me through like the hard times. And she's like, "Oh, I'm going to cry." And she started crying. So I don't know. It's
rewarding to know, like when we did this podcast, I think I was so afraid of like just putting it all out there. And then, you just don't know, like, I don't know, no one could listen or it doesn't matter. But like, I do feel like when people come up and tell us that, it just reminds me of me going up to Gabrielle Union at, Craig's and saying, "Don't cry," but just like, I have to, like, it's in my heart that I have to tell this person, like, she's had such an impact on me emotionally and has helped me, and she doesn't even know it. And then there I am crying and she's like hugging me. It's just like, those are like, it's just connection, right? It's connection. And it's like what makes all of this sort of shitty stuff that happens in life, like, a little better. It doesn't like fix it, but it's like, okay, we're kind of like connecting with people and in it together with them. And I think that's like, you should have called me down. And I
know. It just happened very fast. And I was like in the middle of something and my brain was in there. Like I even told you after, I'm like, I don't know why I was sitting. I should have stood up and hugged her. She was kind of crying. I was just like, I was being very nice, obviously. But in retrospect, I would have like stood up, hugged her, called you and figured out where you were and maybe have you come down. She should, if you're listening, you should reach out to
reach out to me.
DM you.
I think that's it's also funny. We said that in New York. I felt like I'm getting recognized a lot more recently. And I think mainly in New York. I mean, we'll see how it is when we go to Cleveland. But I'm like, is it the podcast? Because when we were in Connecticut, I'm like standing online to get like something at a Christmas farm thing we were, and like someone's like, I thought I just saw Todd. Oh my God, Tara, there's Georgie. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, I feel like we're getting recognized now because of the podcast.
Yeah, well, she was a mom of a son who had fertility stuff.
issues. Yeah.
And they were like in front of us.
Yeah. It's just like so cool. And I don't know. It's very interesting. I feel like now I'm running into people that are recognizing me for a much different reason.
Well, but I think the New York thing is, we were talking about this because we were saying, in LA, occasionally I feel like someone will be like, oh, Tara, I love you on TV or whatever. But in New York, it was like a lot of people. But I also think this time of year in New York is very touristy. Yeah. So there's a lot of like out of towners who just don't have a problem like yelling your name.
Yeah. I always think it's cute like
in New York and LA, especially in LA, it's like we joke like in the Palisades.
There's Goldie Hawn.
Yeah, I'll be like, oh, Conan O'Brien, and then you just kind of go on with your day. Whereas I don't know why I'm even like that, because Conan O'Brien is like the greatest, like, I love him and I should run up to him and harass him, but I guess it's like the culture here is like, don't do that.
Yeah.
So I don't.
So it's just like different. It's funny. All right. Well, the one thing I want to say before we get off is just like, people listening. I know some people are like on second journeys or just have gone through this and listen because they're like me and still so passionate about, the community. But I think there's a lot of people that listen because they're going through it. And I think, I'd be remiss to like notice that, it's the holiday season and everyone's like in this holiday spirit. And it just really reminds me, I mean, we had, I don't know, maybe 4 to 5 Christmases that were really tough. We went through a Christmas where, I see all the pictures and it's like, oh, I put on my Christmas sheets to be happy. And there's like all these pregnancy tests spread out on it that, I have a lot of like, sad memories from our journey. And I think like a lot of people probably that haven't walked in these shoes, like think like, oh, like people are still able to enjoy the holidays and why would that impact them? But I think, holidays are emotional and you get nostalgic and you're thinking about the future. It's like New Year's. When New Year's comes along, I kind of hate New Year's Day. It always feels like I have to reevaluate my life. And I'm like, it's just another day. But I think it does bring up a lot of emotions. And I think when you're constantly envisioning like life with a baby at Christmas and what we're going to take our baby to Santa Claus and we're going to do these things and we're going to be sitting in front of the fire or holding our baby, and you just have these dreams, and then the holiday comes around and either you're going through failure or you just had failure, or, it's not happening and you just keep saying next Christmas. There's so many long haulers that I think holidays are really triggering. So, and I feel bad on being on this side of it, and really hopefully, I want to enjoy, even though I feel bad, I know in my mind that, we work so hard to get to this point that it's okay to enjoy all of these incredible memories we're making. But I always do think about the people that are still stuck in that space. And I just hope that you guys know that next Christmas is another chance. And I hope that it's going to bring you everything you want, like a baby. Okay. So that's it. We probably won't talk to you guys until the new year, I would think.
2025.
Yeah. All right. Everyone have a good holiday. I love you, TK.
Love you.
Thanks for listening to Unexpecting the podcast. Please subscribe, leave a review, and follow Unexpecting Pod on Instagram for info about upcoming weekly episode releases.